So it looks like the situation with regards to Project Restart and COVID-19 isn't getting any less complex. And I'm just reading this article on The Guardian here that's really quite interesting. It takes a bit of an in-depth look at the difficulties that remain before the Premier League can return safely in June, and it makes reference to some of the concerns that the players have. And within it, there's some really kind of like strange things. You've got a reference here to what's gone on in Besiktas in Turkey, the fact that the players have been disinfected from head to toe before training. And then there was this little nugget here. A club doctor explained how some individuals will be carefully monitored because of worries that they could be overwhelmed by a return to the outside world in a physical environment, having lived alone for about 2 months. And you just read stuff like that and you just think, what on earth are we doing? Like, what, have we collectively lost our minds? Do we want football back that much at whatever the cost is that we're willing to take that much of a toll on people's mental health? And then there's stuff about, players during training having to stay 2 meters apart, and the contradictions there being that, they'll stay 2 meters apart during training, but then in games, they're obviously not going to be able to stay 2 meters apart. And then I noticed this bit, which I've highlighted in yellow, which I'll read. It says a number of players explained that it would take 3 weeks of normal training to get back to a competitive level and matches would be required. And that got me thinking about pre-season friendlies and how mundane pre-season friendlies normally are. You normally engage with them because you've missed football and you want to watch a bit of football again, but they're never really played at a particularly high tempo. And we all understand that because footballers haven't played for so long and they're rebuilding that match fitness. And then the quote goes on to say, without friendlies to build momentum, competitive fixtures are likely to be inferior to the product when they start, especially inside an empty stadium. There are also fears that teams will need to prioritise games and almost ignore others because of how quickly those games will come. They'll come thick and fast, resulting in questions over the much-trumpeted integrity at the heart of the season's conclusion. So there we have it. That's the author here is talking about how the fixtures won't be played at the same intensity at first as they were before this crisis. And then he talks about how certain teams, or all teams, are going to have to prioritise certain fixtures because the games are going to be crammed down a quarter of the season into 5-6 weeks. And that means that the games are going to come that quickly that teams are going to have to prioritise them, and some of them will be played in this bizarre fashion where you may have one team really trying to win the game and another team with its foot off the pedal. I mean, think how that plays out. Think about Liverpool win the league within a couple of games. I mean, they're playing us in the Merseyside derby, wherever that will be played, so you know that chances are we'll lose that. And then once they've won the league, they go, do you know what, we're done now, and we don't want to risk any injuries to our superstars. So, and it defeats the object. It defeats the object of bringing the game back, to play it in some half-hearted way where teams aren't trying for certain games or are taking their the intensity off for certain encounters because the games are coming thick and fast. And then Danny, who runs the site, sent me this article from Reuters. It's from around 2 weeks ago. So new research says that players at risk of coronavirus spread to lungs. And it's a bit of research that's been done in Germany and Italy that actually suggests that footballers and other athletes are more at risk from coronavirus because of the strenuous exercise that they take part in. Now, this study hasn't been peer-reviewed, so and I haven't seen any other references to it since it was published, so I'm not too sure how much we can read into it. But anecdotally, I have seen stuff. I was listening to Joe Rogan's podcast the other week, and he was talking about someone he knew was a marathon runner who got COVID and suffered really poorly from it, ended up in hospital really, really ill. And that was because, he was so fit, which kind of goes against conventional wisdom on this disease. And even as I've said in previous videos that I've done on this topic, I don't expect players statistically to get the coronavirus and die. But it's still something to consider. It really is. Even though that, you know, if you look at the fatality data from coronavirus, it is people over the age of 70. It's people who are already compromised with regards to their immune system who seem to be dying from the disease. And we've got a disease that affects the deepest areas of people's lungs. And as I said, this hasn't been peer reviewed. There's been no update on it, but it's certainly something to think about. And if I was a footballer, you may be referencing this study and saying, well, no, I don't fancy playing. And then again, we've got more problems in terms of how the rest of the season will be executed. Norwich here, they're against the Premier League relegating teams if the Championship season stops. So their chairman's talking about they couldn't accept a situation where they've had to play all of their games, but the Championship haven't been able to. They've finished it where it is, and then they want to promote the likes of Leeds and West Brom. And Norwich is saying, well, if we've got to play the rest of our games and we ended up getting relegated, which it looks like they would do, then they would refuse to recognise the fact that they've been relegated. And again, you know, I read stuff like this, the Guardian article, that article from Reuters on that study, and then this new story regarding Norwich, and the stuff that I've already spoken about. And I really don't see how practically this is going to work. I don't see how we're going to finish the season, and I'm drawing the conclusion now that I just think the thing should be null and void. Let's start again when we can. If that's September, who knows where we'll be in September, because ultimately nobody saw this coming 3 or 4 months ago. So, but I think what football should be doing is preparing for when the moment occurs where they can restart football properly. That should be the priority, not trying to rush through the current situation and potentially leaving massive issues for themselves, and, as I said in my first video on this topic, affecting the integrity of the game. But as always, I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comment section below. I'm Adam Partington. Thanks for watching Grand Old Team. Remember to subscribe, like, share and comment.